Hey everyone, hope you're all doing well and doing swell. It's been a little while, I've been busy to say the least. And, well, I guess today I decided I'd talk about it a little bit. Or really, I'd talk about a question I've been asking myself, and I'm going to pose the question to you all. Mainly because I think it's a question that needs to be asked. And for the setting of this, I decided to play in my personal survival single player Minecraft world because it gives a little bit of context. Context being just how much I have played video games. Because just in my own single player world, where I just play alone, not with my friends, I don't really use it for YouTube or Twitch. It's not like never before seen or anything, but I have 33.91 days. Basically 34 days. I have over a month of time in this world alone. Now, I've had it for years, maybe 4 years, five ish at this point. I can't completely recall. I want to say 5 years. I think I've had this world since probably 2019 ish. I kind of wish there was something that told you when a world was created. But yeah, so I started a long time ago, and I've put a lot of time into it. And this is just survival multiplayer. I'm using a little beta texture pack, beta continuum. Um, that was weird. Did I disable it by accident? No? Okay. And along with a couple of visual mods so that, I hold a torch and everything lights up around me. Very basic stuff. Nothing that I can't uninstall without hurting the world. So it can always be updating survival world. And I wanted to talk about whether or not I, and I'm going to pose it as you, should play video games. The real question at hand here is whether or not video games are hurting you in your life. Are they a detriment to your ability to live life? And it, in my opinion, just might be the case that they are. And a lot of that just has to do with the time spent in them. As you saw, I have 33 days just in Minecraft, just in the survival world. And I've been playing Minecraft since 2010, or at least that's when I bought my account. And frankly, I was playing the free version since before then. So a lot of time. A lot of time. And that's not all of the other games I've played. I think I have 1,000 hours in Dark Souls 3 and hundreds of hours in Elden Ring and many more hours in all of the other Dark Souls games in Skyrim and in many other games. All of them have been. I filled many hours into these games. And many of them, if I had never played them and just played any of the other games at the very least, I don't think would make any real difference to my life. Now, sure, if I had just not played them entirely and done nothing, maybe there'd be a difference. The difference between playing video games and sitting around staring off into space, there's probably a difference there. There's probably some amount of mental stimulus that is beneficial from that you can get from video games as opposed to doing absolutely nothing. I definitely think that's the case. However, that being said, I don't think I really gained anything from playing these games that I couldn't have gotten from somewhere else. Now, that's not to say that simply because I could have gotten it from somewhere else, that it's bad that I played them. No, I don't think that at all. I do, however, think that the amount of time I put into them in comparison to other things I could have done may be where the detriment begins to build up. So I have here, to help try and keep me on track, a series of questions or ideas that come to mind when I'm thinking about whether or not I should play video games. And of course, the first thing I'm thinking about really are, how old are you? And what do you value in your life? So, for example, I am Christian. I'm religious. Yet, in the last 10 years, I have spent more time playing video games than I have going to church. I have only as of recently started to actually read the Bible and study it to try and make sure that I, as an adult, understand it. There were Bible studies I went to as a kid, but I've long since lost the memory of any of those. And because of that, it seems important that I put more time into it. And I have started to. But the time I put into it is at best 5 to 40 minutes, depending, a day. And in the past, I used to put hours a day into playing various video games, probably pretty easily, like 2 hours a day, give or take, into video games. My free time, personally, was largely taken up by them. And some of that makes sense. Again, as I have written here, your age is a big factor, I think, in whether or not you should be playing video games. When I was in high school, for example, before I was actually legally allowed to drive anywhere but high school, or secondary if you're in anywhere other than the U.S. and you use secondary. So when I was in secondary school, I couldn't drive, couldn't get around, and the towns in the U.S. are usually pretty sprawling. It's not exactly easy to get from point A to point B. Our public transportation really isn't great. We often are limited to only where we can get by our own personal means. And so when you're younger, you can't really go out and do other stuff for fun, especially if your parents are busy. My mom, she went back to school at the same time that I was when I was in early secondary, and my dad, he's a firefighter, so, and he works 48-hour shifts now. At one point, he worked 24-hour shifts, so he's not necessarily available consistently. He's around. Don't get me wrong, because it's 48 on, 58 off, or something like that. So it's basically, he works for longer than that. 48 on, 72 off. I think he works for 2 days, so he's at the fire station for 2 days, and then he stays home for like 4 days. And it's changed over the years, so I could be wrong about it, and I might be off in the exact number. But anyways, the point being is that if I wanted to do other things consistently back in early secondary, I might not have really been able to, because I just didn't have transportation. Anything I wanted to do needed to be within walking distance, and there wasn't that much safely walkable. Was I capable of walking to different places? Yeah, definitely, but it wouldn't have been considered safe, nor would my parents at the time have allowed it. So video games offered kind of a way to, engage my mind, have a hobby that was safe and also to a certain degree affordable, etc., etc. Plenty of possible benefits in there with regard to to playing video games because I was younger. Now, as I got older and I could go places on my own, I did always remain busy, as over the last many years of my younger life, I have focused on schooling, meaning I'm focused on getting good grades. And hold on, give me just a second. Okay, well, that was just a second for you guys, but that was a bit of extra time for me, and I vaguely remember what I was saying, more or less just that I was busy when I was younger with school, and that really didn't leave me that much time regarding extracurricular activities to go and do other things. Now, I think I could have. I think if I had really focused and, you know, what's the phrase? Put your head down, then I think I could have done it. And it probably would have gone over just fine. Maybe my grades would have been a little bit worse as opposed to A B's. I might have been A B's and C's, or just a couple more B's as opposed to A's. And that is very possible. That might just be how it would have gone. But I think it would have benefited me more if I had maybe tried to participate in sports. Now, there are other reasons that I didn't. Health issues and, well, yeah, health issues. We'll leave it at that. So I didn't do that. There are other things I put my time towards that I just didn't really get around to doing all that much. And, well, after the years went by, between school and video games, amongst one or two other things, well, I don't really have that much to show. There are other things I've been interested in and I spent time doing or learning, philosophy in my personal time, a decent amount of reading, but still not that much. And all of these things, video games especially, took up my time. Because of that, the things I didn't do now as I'm getting older are becoming more apparent. In my own opinion, what you spend your time doing is a reflection of what you value. So this is where I'm going to talk about your values. So for example, I said I'm Christian, yet I've spent more time playing video games than going to church. And I'm not saying that like in the sense that, oh, I'm just a person who doesn't think church is important, but I'm still Christian. No, I think church is important. But despite that, I have basically, through my actions, indicated that video games are more important to me than church, which isn't something that's true. I don't believe that. I don't think that is true. But my actions have indicated otherwise, because my time investment has gone far more to video games than it has to my own religion, my own belief system. And the thing is I actually think that's true of many people. You can replace Christianity with any other ideology. If I ask you if you believe in God or not, and you say yes or you say no, and then I ask you, have you thought more about the existence of God than you have played video games, and you say no, then you've indicated that video games are more important to you than your understanding of reality and of why you even exist, basically. That's a somewhat more complicated question. But it's one that I've had to pose to myself simply because I look at how I spend my time in comparison to the things that I value, and, well, they don't quite add up. They're, well, they conflict with each other. Now, that's not to say that simply because you do something a lot, that or that you do one thing more than something else, that it inherently means you value that thing more, okay? In your life, you're going to sleep for a third of your life. You should be asleep, pretty much. Out of a day, you have 24 hours in a day. 8 hours of that day should be spent sleeping. That's just the way it is, and that's really the way it should be. And if you do that and you manage to sleep 8 hours a day, not too much, not too little. For some people, it might be 9 hours. For some people, it might be 7 hours, but around 8 hours a day. For most people, it's 8 hours. Then you'll be spending you'll probably sleep in your life more than you do any other one singular activity, and that's kind of just the way it is. Like you just sleep a lot. So, but that's the way it's always going to be. Eating similarly, you probably spend maybe 2 hours a day eating, between breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Maybe less. If you're lucky, it's less. About 30 minutes each meal. Maybe a little bit less than that if your meals are pre-made and you don't have to make them yourself. But if you have to make your food yourself, then well, that takes quite a bit of time. So you're probably not gonna get a whole lot out of it there. You will be spending quite a bit of time on food, right? So these things are going to take up a lot of time of your day, whatever job you have, right? That's just a means of living. So all of these things you can add up just as to a means of living. And there are other things that you might consider just means of living that maybe are non-conventional. You The time to relax is perhaps a means of living. What you have to start looking at is whether or not your time to relax, such as video games, starts to eat away at other things, such as your sleep. How often has playing video games caused you to stay up late? How much has it messed up your sleep cycle? How much has it caused you to basically start interfering with your other healthy habits? So, values. What do you value? Do you value your health? Do you value your knowledge, your religion, your experiences? And how much are you letting video games eat into that time? And how much time you have for those things depends on your age. So I think that's kind of the fundamental idea behind me thinking about playing video games as much as I have been. Is I've been thinking about what I could have been doing instead and maybe what I should have been doing instead. I don't think playing video games is bad. I think playing too much video games is bad. But I think it's really easy to play too much video games. See, video games, they're good in a lot of ways. They're fun. They offer you a means of socializing that, as I mentioned before, if you're not allowed to drive on your own, or if your friends live far away, as I'm currently working in a different country, teaching English, and my friends, of course, still live in the US. And video games are a great way for us to interact. We can just call and talk and play video games, and that kind of helps me continue to use my English to make sure I don't forget how to teach English as a second language in a foreign country. That would be, well, not good to say the least. And so that's something that there's utility to it. What else do I have to say? Yeah, it's fun. And it's low investment, like I said. You don't have to go somewhere. It's less time to start up. It's not that much of a consistent cost, especially if you just play a video game like Minecraft. You buy it once, you have whatever device you play it on, that you buy once and that's it. That's all you need. Hopefully your device doesn't break and you don't have to pay for repairs and all of that, but generally speaking, just to play Minecraft, the long-term cost of it isn't going to be all that much. And for a lot of people, anyone watching this video, you probably already have or would have had the means of playing. So it's a low investment. However, this is where you get into I think, well, let's see, where do I want to go? Low investment. We'll talk about low investment and cost per outcome. So what I mean by low investment is kind of like I said. So let's say I want to learn an instrument. I have to pay for the instrument, which is going to be, depending on the instrument, expensive. I then want to learn the instrument, and to learn an instrument takes a lot of time. More time than it takes to learn most video games. It's going to be difficult. Right, it's going to be difficult, and I might need to even pay for lessons if I'm really struggling with it, or if it's a really complicated instrument, or if you're just not naturally talented with music. You're almost definitely going to need lessons. That's just part of it. And that's going to cost quite a bit of money. Lessons over time, those will add up quite quickly. And become pretty expensive. However, the outcome of what you're investing in is better than in video games for most people. Unless you're getting into content creation, unless you're really building a community around video games, you probably don't really get that much out of playing video games. It is, in a sense, meditation for you. It is just a state that you can go into that helps you to relax and helps you to calm down, which is great. I actually think it's good for exactly that. I think it achieves that, and it achieves it well. But you're not going to get that much more out of it. You're not going to learn that many more things. Now, some video games, they're better, much better than others, which maybe we should talk about. It's going to get hard to separate, or it's going to get hard to really discuss why you should or shouldn't play video games if you are not separating one video game from another. So there are video games which are creative outlets. This could be Minecraft. It could be, heck, you could include, like, what's another good example of creative outlet games? One's focused more around our artistic values, maybe recreation, anything that is more involved in building, painting, any form of creative expression. Those are going to have a benefit beyond just being a video game. In a sense, Minecraft, much of what you do in it when you're creating castles can be compared to this similarly to someone painting, learning to paint. Now, the issue is it's in a sense, a more limited medium than painting. And what I mean by that is when I build in Minecraft, everything is limited by what Minecraft is, which, just due to the nature of Minecraft, is more limiting than learning to paint, in which case I can learn how to express on a canvas, a fully free canvas, fully blank canvas, in far more ways than I can in Minecraft. Painting and canvases and what you can create could hypothetically interact with more people in more settings than Minecraft normally would. Now, that being said, there's a huge audience if you're with Minecraft. There's a huge community to interact with. There's a lot of benefits in that sense. But I think it can go to say that it is more limited than just actual painting. But it's still within that same category, I would say, of you having a creative outlet. And there are other games similar. One that I've gotten recently is called, I'm gonna pull it up. What is this game called? It's called Little no. Oh, come on. Load. It's a little game on Steam that basically allows you in a more limited way, you could say, to build towns. Tiny Glade. Tiny Glade is very cozy little game. If you're into cozy style games and similar to what some people use Minecraft for, then you'll probably enjoy it. And similarly, it's kind of just a creative outlet, similar to Minecraft. Not at all similar in gameplay to Minecraft, but similar in the fact that you're just building probably medieval style towns and castles, which is great. It's a lot of fun to do that. And I fully recommend it. It's not too terribly expensive. And you probably won't sink, well, you might sink a lot of time into it, but it's very convenient for just a quick, maybe 10-minute little session of playing, or maybe a little more. Whereas with other games, you'll be a little more tempted to sink a lot more time in. And that, well, oh, I landscape all of this area, by the way, so this is not like he just blew a hole in something that I can just refill easily. I had a specific design in that spot, but oh well. So creative outlet games, puzzle games, those are also good for you. And well, I say good for you within limitation, but they're good for you. They are puzzles. Story games like the Spider-Man games, where it's just you play through it once, you play the story, pretty much perfectly fine, especially because those often tend to be mixed in with puzzles. So they're kind of just a short story puzzle game. It has a completion. You can play it to the complete part, call it done, and then you're done with it. Now, of course, those are more expensive, and because you buy one and then you'll want the next one, etc. So it's a $60 for maybe 60 hours, if you're lucky, 60 hours at least. Although in what we're talking about now, maybe 60 hours of a single video game isn't really what you want, but $60 is still a lot. And so these games all have, in a sense, either they can be compared to another medium outside of video games, which is traditionally considered good and valued by most people as something that, it's decent for you to spend your time doing. Where video games have an issue is in how easy they give you a dopamine hit. So when you're playing video games, you are receiving dopamine much easier than if you learn to play an instrument. The time that you put into playing an instrument is a lot more than the time you're going to put into playing almost any video game. At least to the point that it'll start to give you dopamine, and you'll probably start to enjoy it. There's going to be challenge associated with achieving a dopamine hit. And that's really the way your brain should understand it, because in the real world, dopamine doesn't come easily. You want to make a friend, you have to get over an awkward situation. You want to achieve a physical goal, you have to put in the work to achieve it. The dopamine you get comes from the work you put in. Whereas video games are set and designed so that you don't really have to put in all too much of a too much work. Now you might be saying like, what do you mean? I put in hours into building my castle and I mine for I grind and etc. But all of that time you're still receiving dopamine from the game. You're enjoying that grind. Now, some of you might have developed a interesting relationship with video games where you will play a video game despite not actually enjoying it. I've done that many a times and realize now more so than I did back then that it probably means I should stop playing that game. That's if I'm not enjoying it all that much, then I should definitely consider stopping. And sometimes I put in too much time into a game, etc., because I'm like, oh, it's gonna get good. It's gonna get to be something that I like and I enjoy. And that maybe is true sometimes, but the amount of time I probably put into it before then is far more than I should have. And if I feel like I'm working in a video game, then you should ask yourself, what could you be working on instead? What could you be improving in your real life from your physical fitness, your knowledge of a certain topic in real life? Of course, there is that aspect that video games are a great secondary activity to, say, listening to a podcast, so long as it's not too engaging of an activity. Like right now, you might be playing Minecraft while you listen to me. And that's probably a pretty okay thing to do. Nothing too notable there. Just, something that you can kind of do while you have something going in the background. So you're multitasking a little bit. Maybe a little too much because it's actually possibly bad for you to quote-unquote multitask. And, oh yes, the fun police, the anti-dopamine of Minecraft, making sure the game can't be too fun, of course. I forgot all about those, sadly. Or not sadly, I wish I didn't. I wish I forgot about them more often, is what I should really say. Man. He just took an arrow for me, that's actually pretty funny. And, so, where video games become more of a problem, and I do think that there are actually studies starting to show this, is in games such as Call of Duty and Fortnite, where they're beyond maybe the team building aspect of it, which there definitely is. You fall into a problem where the game is it's extrinsically motivating you and providing you dopamine. So in Minecraft, people get bored of Minecraft in a sense because in the end, your enjoyment out of it only comes from what you motivate yourself to do. The game eventually stops giving you dopamine hits. So you can set a goal, you get the dopamine hit when you kill the Ender Dragon. This is one of the reasons that you could see that whatever they are, the speedrunning became so popular. It is a dopamine hit that you can basically just infinitely have. This is why Call of Duty and the rest of them, Fortnite, whatever, when you're doing all of that stuff, is... Oh, I've given myself no way out of here. Okay, well that's kind of funny. Did not know I did that. All of those, they continue to just give you infinite dopamine without making you reach for any real goal, any real challenge. They're showing to be far more addictive, and apparently they enlarge a section of your brain. I don't remember which section, I'm afraid. I cannot recall. But they enlarge some section of your brain which is which indirectly is associated then with a smaller hippocampus. And the hippocampus of your brain is what helps you with memory. I'm about to be invaded by a cat. Hopefully, no, no, get out of here. I'm in the middle of something. I'm occupied. Yes, occupied. You're not. You don't get to just get up here whenever you want. No, I know. He's bumping into my head. He's probably about to sit down on my mic right now. No, we gotta no. No. You go. Okay. So, in a sense, Minecraft has accidentally, or, well, yeah, accidentally, because the studies didn't really exist at the time. I just threw you off of the table. Why are you getting back on the table? My word. Cats are, I don't understand them. Anyways, Minecraft, by making itself intrinsically motivated, has made itself healthier for especially younger kids. For adults, what I'm talking about matters a little bit less. But for younger kids, the mental health aspect of games is far more of a concern. I mean, it's a concern when you're older as well, but you're not assumptionally developing your brain anymore, and therefore it's not as big of a problem. So, here are things that can happen with video games. They're addictive. They are addictive, as we talked about. They're a dopamine hit, and they're an easy dopamine hit. And that's the problem with them, is that you get dopamine from them at little to no cost. Like I said, it's no cost, really, to start playing them. I have seen in the kids that I teach that it is incredibly difficult to get these kids to put down their phones and actually pay attention in class. And a lot of them are playing video games. How often when you were a kid, or if you are a kid now, do you not do your homework and instead you go and play video games? What you don't realize is the distaste you have to do many things, how much you don't enjoy homework, is in comparison to how much you enjoy other things. Your brain operates in a comparative manner. So you compare how much joy you get from any one thing and how much pain you get from any one thing to the rest of your life. So if something easily brings you joy and brings you joy often and easily, your brain will no longer want to do the things that bring you a little bit less joy and are more difficult to deal with. However, if you remove the easy dopamine hit and yet keep the things that are maybe harder to achieve, let's say working out, for example, then suddenly your joy that you get out of working out is going to increase. Some people do dopamine detoxing. So basically they I don't know, make their life suck for a month so that they can then have tried to rewire their brain to get a better dopamine hit off of smaller amounts of dopamine. Whereas we, playing video games, are getting so much dopamine constantly that we're building a tolerance. You're building a tolerance in a sense to dopamine. So it is overstimulating in multiple ways, as I've been going on about dopamine, which can cause two different issues: the depression issue, which is associated with overuse of video games, and also focus, because your ability to focus somewhat depends on how interested you are in something, and how interested you are in something depends on the dopamine that it gives you. And a highly stimulating, high dopamine game is going to make it so that, learning about maybe a topic you're interested in, like if you're interested in history, maybe that's not a good example, but if you are interested in history, you might have a harder time focusing in history class, despite the fact that you like history. I know for a fact that there are topics that I liked as a kid, but I still couldn't focus in class. I don't know if it would have been different if I didn't play video games. I definitely have always had sleep problems. And to be honest, though, I'm not sure that that's entirely the result of video games, as I think I had sleep problems before I started playing video games, but video games definitely haven't helped them, is probably what I could say. So, sleep problems, this can partly just be caused by looking at a blue screen. It can be caused by which for various reasons. If you don't know about looking at like blue light and stuff, you can look it up. It's not great for you. Especially not before bedtime. You've probably heard like, hey, try not to have screen time an hour or so before you go to bed. It's a pretty easy thing to understand. Something to consider. Fight versus flight and anxiety. So the simulation, especially from like fighting games, is that you are creating adrenaline through video games in an unnatural manner, and you are putting your brain into states that it normally wouldn't be in as often as you might put it in. So constantly playing Fortnite, constantly playing Call of Duty, constantly playing these fighting games might in fact be worse for you and which can lead to increased, supposedly, anxiety. And also it can cause your fight versus flight to mess up, maybe causing you to not activate fight versus flight when you should, or, well, in either direction, either by it doesn't activate in times when you should be activating fight or flight, or it's activating in times when you shouldn't be going into fight or flight. Either of these might be possible situations. This, it seems, I think, is newer research that I was reading about, the fight versus flight and the anxiety. So the exact reasoning that this happens is unknown. Same with the action games versus the hippocampus that I mentioned earlier. This is all newer stuff for the most part. It makes sense, but it's mostly it is like, it's not correlation, it is causal, but it's separated causal. So action games, playing a lot of action games, increases the size of another part of the brain that I'm forgetting. It starts with an S, I think. And then increasing this size, actually it might be correlative, is associated with smaller hippocampus. Either because this size directly competes with the hippocampus, or because the time spent increasing the size of this other part of your brain is taking away from the time developing the hippocampus. Either of these are possibilities. So, all of that to say that the investment of video games, both in dopamine and what you're actually doing, is taking away from... Cat has returned. He doesn't understand when I don't want to cuddle. He simply cannot comprehend me saying no. So, right, what was I saying? Oh my, no. Right, all of that is regarding the dopamine that you get from video games and how that is affecting your brain and your enjoyment of life outside of video games. In a sense, video games are a drug, and they're not a drug you need to be taking. Video games, when you use them too much, are kind of like, instead of taking Advil, taking morphine. You don't need... Oh my word, Mauser! Get... These streams always go perfectly. Anyways. morphine that is video games is overstimulating your it's an overstimulation. It's not that what you're using it for is bad, but it's that you could be using much less, and you're going for a much larger degree of dopamine than I'm. You know what? I think I've hammered home the dopamine part, and I'm now losing my tongue. So let's talk about physical health. Unless you're playing in VR, which you might be, it's a non-active activity. You're sitting down a lot. And if you're in school, you're sitting down in school. If you're working a desk job, you're sitting down at your desk. And believe it or not, humans are not designed to be sitting as much as we have been. We have designed a society not made for our physical bodies evolutionarily or the way God designed them, whichever way you want to spin it. It's not healthy for us to be sitting nearly as much as we do. Weight gain, did I even write down all of the things? No, I didn't. Weight gain or weight loss can both be associated with oversitting. Joint pain, the position that you have your wrists in often is associated with arthritis. You're leaning forward. There's literally like whatever it is, gamer neck or desk neck, where basically your head is stuck in a forward position instead of being upright from your body. Bad posture isn't good for your back. It's not good for your shoulders. Basically, all of the sitting that we're doing, even if you have good posture, will have issues. And most people have bad posture. All of those things that are the old people used to tell us about and be like, oh, it's bad for you. Well, I guess they were right. Who would have thunk? Who would have thought it? They were right the whole time. I've slowly become more and more an old man, I guess, as time has gone on. Eye strain, I've talked about a little bit, but overuse of any screen. This isn't only for video games. This is phone use. This is watching television. Any electronic is associated with headaches and worsening vision. Some of that can just be looking too close for too long. All of these things are problems associated with video games. So, if you don't already understand what I'm saying there's a lot of problems associated with playing video games, but it's really mainly just around playing video games too much. Yes, it's okay to play video games. It's not inherently bad to play video games. But as I have put it, for some things, it's not about what you are doing, it's about what it is keeping you from doing. When you play video games, don't just think about, oh, it's fine, I'm not hurting anyone when I play video games. At the very moment that I'm sitting down, it's not like it's immediately causing me any problems. As long as I don't play it too much, I'll be fine. Depending on your age, you can look at this a few different ways. If you turned your life into a day, and let's say you're 25, then you just woke up. If your life is a day, 24 hours, it is 8 a.m. If you're 25, you are 1/3 of the way through the average lifespan, at least of a male. And you've just woken up. You are about to start your day. In fact, you're starting your day. The alarm clock is going off right now. Or you've woken up, if you're healthy enough, to the sun. It's 8 a.m. Are you going to oversleep in your life? Are you going to get up, or are you going to keep sleeping? What does it mean for you to start your day in your life? What is that going to look like? And you should ask yourself, are you well slept? Are you prepared for the next 8 hours of your day? Or are you going to be tired? Are you going to sleep through it? How much are you going to struggle with that? And you should ask yourself whether or not video games are something that have prepared you for the next, I guess it's 16 hours of your day, right? If the first 25 years of your life are the first 8 hours of a day, the ones that you spend sleeping, are you now awake and ready for the rest of your day? And is continuing to play video games when you get to the end of the day? How often in your day-to-day life, how often do you get to the end of your day and you go, I don't feel like I got a lot done? Well, you're going to get to the end of this metaphorical day one day, and you're going to look back on it, and you're going to see where a lot of your time went. And I guess this is me trying to give you the alarm to wake up. Oh my word! This is what a wonderful moment, truly. What a what a grand aspect of all of this. Just as I'm talking about sleeping, and now these things are coming. Oh my word. Look, I don't want to say that you should never play video games again. I'm not going to stop playing video games immediately. But I do think it's time to step away because I don't think I've let myself get enough rest. And I now have 16 hours of a day ahead of me that if I spend a moment more on video games, well, I won't achieve as much as I wanted to. At the end of the day, I want to say that it was a day well worked, a day well spent, and that I'm content with it. And with how few things I think I can apply myself to right now, largely because I've spent so much time in video games that could have been spent learning an instrument, writing a book, improving my physical health, learning any number of new skills, making more friends in real life, people who learning to socialize more in real life. All of these things I could be getting better at, and I've spent time playing video games. Again, there's nothing wrong with playing a video game. But I think that there are things that I can be spending my time doing that are more beneficial to the things I value in life, to God, to family, to helping the world be a better place. I mean, a big reason I ever even started making content was really just so that I can make sure that while I play video games, I'm somehow engaging with people, making sure I'm socializing a little bit. Then I made it so that I was trying to share my thoughts and I'm not just being an echo chamber in my own brain. So I wanted other people to hear what I have to say or what I think so that actually they can criticize me. And also, I can have that moment of thinking about what I say as if I'm saying it to someone else. And then I listen back to the things I say and I can think, no, I'm wrong about this. Maybe I'm crazy, whatever it is, to get people to engage with what I have to say, or at least to make sure I'm thinking about it beyond just a shower argument that you always win, right? So this makes me double check what I think about and what my opinions are a little more. And maybe as time goes on, if I continue this and I can continue content, I'll use it as a method of sharing things that I like to learn. I like history and I like philosophy. So maybe I will try to make this channel into something where people who like to play video games can kind of combine video games with another activity, another metric that is perhaps a little more beneficial or that can be used in other areas of life a little more. I think video games have become too limiting and they don't prepare you for enough things. It's hard to apply them in other aspects of life that aren't very, at the very least, first world. I mean, don't get me wrong, video games can teach you a lot about computers, that's for sure. I definitely learned a lot about computers. I'm better with technology than most of my family. And I can thank the fact that I grew up starting out with kind of video games in a sense. As video games grew up, so did I. So, anyways, I think that's all I have to say about this topic. I think I've talked about it all about as best as I can. So just ask yourself, or just remind yourself that the quality of something doesn't always come from itself inherently, but what it keeps you from doing, or what it will eventually help you to do. I hope this has been food for thought. If you've stuck around with me for this entire rant, then holy smokes, maybe you actually don't have a horrible attention span. Um, and also, I hope this has gotten you thinking about it. You know, thinking about how you use your time, because maybe video games aren't the problem for you. Maybe you don't play video games that much. Maybe you watch a whole lot of movies, maybe you watch a whole lot of shows, and you can see how those aren't beneficial to you. Maybe you actually do spend too much time doing something like painting, and painting's not what you want to do with your life, but oh my word, these things are just ruining the whole the whole rant. Oh my word. Well, all right. I'll leave these. I'll leave you all here while I fend off these nightmares as the sun rises, as my day has long since started, and maybe I'm giving you guys this message just a little bit before your day starts.